Well, when it comes to lending, agriculture is, of course, its own category with diverse challenges. Sam Miller is here from BMO Harris Bank with a look ahead to 2022. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk a bit about the climate. I know you and I spoke a few months ago at World Dairy Expo, and you said farmers just need to be cautious heading into the new year. Is that still the same sentiment?
Yes, I'd say it is, Melaine. I mean, we have had a couple of pretty good years in the ag sector, Wisconsin in particular. Good in terms of better prices, good in terms of better crops, bigger crops, and of higher quality. That always helps. Few dark clouds, higher expenses. Feed, fertilizer, fuel, all the F words, right? We've got them higher. Yeah. And that's creating some margin pressure as we pivot into 2022.
I heard a recent report from some experts, including USDA, saying they could see a 12% increase in input costs in the year ahead. How does a farmer mitigate that potential? Yeah,
that's quite a challenge. I mean, it really takes looking at every expense item and figuring out what can you protect. Can you buy ahead? Can you find a way to reduce expenses? That's the key. It's about increasing revenues without increasing expenses greatly or reducing expenses.
Now, when we look at the year that just was, we did have influx of cash from the government, influx of purchasing from the government, keeping some of those prices strong. Now that some of those programs are tapering off, do you anticipate that having an effect?
It certainly will, but the good news is that the rest of the demand economy is pretty good, both domestically, because as the world's opened up more, at least the U.S. economy has opened up more, that means that we're consuming more away from home while still consuming at home. And better yet, exports continue to increase. I mean, Mexico has picked up exports of a lot of dairy products, meat products. China continues to buy grains and beef, a little less pork, and also a lot of whey protein to feed baby pigs.
Let's talk a bit about the low interest rate. That still is holding around. How can farmers take advantage of that without putting themselves in a situation should those storm clouds roll in?
Right. It's interesting. Interest rates have remained low. They've been low for a decade. The Federal Reserve is talking about, or potentially, if you look at Fed watchers, are talking about some rate increases likely in 2022. But that's at the short end, at the variable rate side. The longer term rates have remained pretty flat. And so it's a good time to look at locking in some interest rate exposure. You talk about rising expenses. That's a way that you can mitigate your interest expense by locking in some rates for a longer period of time.
What about projects, equipment? Is now a good time to be investing in those?
Boy, that's a challenge because number one, availability, and two, cost. Steel, plastic, almost any type of material cost is up. And is it the right time or is it not the right time? You look at John Deere, the largest farm equipment manufacturer, just got done with a strike. So not only do you have a backup in demand for those high-priced items, but you didn't have factories operating to build them. So maybe it's a bit of a time to look and wait, but always complete the planning, and then when the economic conditions are right, that's the time to execute.
And I know you've said before, plan for overruns, plan for excess. Yes. Don't plan to that final dollar. No, it's going to be a little more.
That's right. That's right. Scenario planning. Yeah. You have to look at what if things are better than I expected, what if they're worse than I expected, and try to make plans so that you can adjust to whatever the economy brings to you.
Let's talk a bit about land. If someone has the option to purchase land, it becomes available, should they do it?
Sure. Land, the answer to that really depends on what your circumstances are. Land, historically, is a very good investment. It returns about 10 to 11%. Most of that is capital gains over time. The challenge with a land purchase is that you need multiple years, multiple cycles in order to be able to pay for it. So you have to have the cash ability to be able to get that asset appreciation eventually. And always the farm next door, that seems to be a pretty good deal.
Well, I appreciate your insight. No one has the crystal ball, but you're about as close as we get. So
all right.
I appreciate it, Sam. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Melaine.